Six Friends, 10 seasons on television, 62 Emmy nominations, and 30 years since the series premiere. The sitcom Friends is still a cultural powerhouse in television and pop culture. As of 2015, the show still pulled in $1 billion each year for Warner Brothers, and is watched by millions of people every single day on streaming services. Last year I built a mini TV that played episodes from the show, and I've been a big fan since I was young, watching syndicated reruns on Nick at Night and TBS, these days on HBO Max. On my last birthday, I visited the Friends Experience in Boston and got to tour the sets and see exhibits on making the show. Friends has had a reputation for being progressive. It featured the first lesbian wedding on primetime television and had prominent LGBTQ characters in the show. The question I'm posing about Friends is it as progressive as its reputation? I'll be investigating this question by analyzing 9 plot lines from the show that highlight its attitude towards LGBTQ plus characters and themes, while also analyzing the show's enforcement of white heteronormativity throughout the series.
Ooh, that's interesting.
The 1990s was an experimental time for LGBTQ representation on television. Shows like Will and Grace and Ellen pushed new boundaries with LGBTQ characters in the mainstream, having them be some of the main characters of the series. Though these characters were often shown through a safe lens to help them align with societal opinions of queer people at the time, characters had to stay limited in stereotypes of being white, successful, and educated to be more acceptable to the assumed heterosexual audiences. When members of the LGBTQ community are represented in media, they are usually subjected to oversimplified ideals and images or stereotypes. Friends was one of the first shows of the time to include LGBTQ plus characters shown outside of stereotypes, and is still thought to be progressive in that way today. Friends certainly provides certain degree of visibility for the LGBTQ community, not typically seen in a plethora of media productions of late 1990s and even in some media products of today. This representation is very important to take into consideration as research has shown watching televised gender portrayals has an effect on individuals' real-world gender-based attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. Ross co-parenting with Carol and Susan. Friends was ahead of its time in its portrayal of Carol and Susan, Carol being Ross's ex-wife who shortly before the show began came out to him as a lesbian and they got divorced. The Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation gave awards to the show for its portrayal of a lesbian couple in 1995, 1996, and 1997. The show does a good job displaying Carol and her new partner Susan as well-rounded characters within the show. Ross and Susan often butting heads due to Ross feeling threatened by her role in Carol's life. The show displays Carol and Susan in ways outside of the stereotypical portrayal of lesbian women of the time. Friends defies these stereotypes through their presentation of Carol and Susan. To begin, the appearance of Susan and Carol resemble nothing of the Bull-Dyke stereotype. The two attractive women both embrace femininity as evidenced by their long hair and the choice to both wear dresses on their wedding day. Carol and Susan are also not hypersexualized or portrayed as promiscuous. Their authentic love and commitment for each other is accentuated in the episode through their wedding ceremony and the discussion that occurs about their relationship. There is a plotline in the early episodes of the show where it is revealed that Carol is pregnant with Ross's baby after their divorce is final. The conflict in this plotline is Ross struggling to include Susan in his plans for their new family's dynamics. Ross jokes at Susan and they argue often in the episodes. Ross's masculinity is threatened by the idea and the show's implication that Susan would take on the fatherly role in the family for his child. Ross doesn't like that, and they compete with each other for validation in parenting the child. Carol urges them to get along.
All right, you two, stop it.
No. She gets a credit. Hey, I'm in there too.
God, you're not actually suggesting Helen, Willick, Bunch, Geller, because I think that borders on child abuse.
Of course not. I'm suggesting Geller Willick Bunch.
Oh, no. You see what he's doing? He knows no one's going to say all those names. He knows they'll wind up calling her Geller, then he gets his way.
My way? You think this is my way? Believe me, of all the ways I ever imagined this moment in my life being, this is not my way. You know what? This is too hard. I can't
Knock,
do...
knock. How are we today? Any nausea?
A little.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Carol and Susan are shown as very good and attentive parents throughout the series, compared to Ross, who is occasionally portrayed as a somewhat careless and selfish parent. The dysfunctionality shown in their three-way parenting relationship portrays Susan as intruding on Ross's ideal family, a heteronormative family, and shows her intent to parent Ben with her partner Carol as selfish. Susan is presented in a way that is threatening to Ross's masculinity. They argue about their roles in the child's life and even what they're going to name the child. They eventually can come to an agreement to all co-parent Ben together. with Ross and Susan being the ones who helped come up with the first name for the baby together. Ross, finally making peace with the idea of a non-heteronormative traditional family, is progressive, despite his initial resistance, in displaying an acceptance of queer families in media. Ross's discomfort with the idea at first appealing to a large heteronormative audience, and his eventual acceptance of it appealing to queer viewers watching the show. With its recurring lesbian characters and apparent ease with alternative sexual identities and family formations, Friends is a prime example of broadcast television's effort to attract this demographic. Carol and Susan's wedding. Carol and Susan's wedding was a meaningful plotline in the show. It is displayed as a big event, and in the episode, Carol and Susan even face resistance by homophobic family members and are supported by the main cast. Carol comes to Monica's apartment before the wedding distressed because her parents don't support the marriage. After a talk with Ross and him offering to be the one to walk her down the aisle, she is restored in her faith to marry Susan for love.
What happened?
My parents called this afternoon to say they weren't coming.
Oh my God.
I mean, I knew they were having trouble with this whole thing, but they're my parents. I mean, they're supposed to give me away and everything.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And then Susan and I got in this big fight because I said maybe we should call off the wedding, and then she said, we're not doing this for them, we're doing it for us, and if I couldn't see that, then maybe we should call off the wedding. And I don't know what to do.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think Susan's right.
You do?
Look, do you love her? And you don't have to be too emphatic about this.
Of course I do.
Well, then that's it. And if George and Adelaide can't accept that, then the hell with them. Look, I mean, if my parents didn't want me to marry you, no way that would have stopped me. Right? Look, this is your wedding. Do it.
You're right. Of course you're right.
So we're back on?
We're back on.
You heard the woman? Peel, chop, double!
The show's framing of the wedding as for love and non-threatening to heterosexual marriages is progressive for a time when same-sex marriage was not legal throughout the country. The visibility of the lesbian community in Friends is certainly noteworthy, when visibility of lesbians was not and is still not always present in meaningful ways. Ross, at first resisting the marriage, comes to understand that Susan and Carol love each other, and if he cares about Carol and her happiness as his ex-wife and the mother of his child, he should support her. Ross, Carol's ex-husband, has a hard time accepting Carol will be marrying a woman, telling his friends, "I'm really not going. I mean, I don't get it. They already live together. Why do they need to get married?" In a moment of sincerity, Monica tells Ross because they love each other, and they want to celebrate that love with the people that are close to them. Through the defiance of stereotypes, Friends validates the fluidity of gender expression and the legitimacy of same-sex love and consequently same-sex marriage. Susan's threat to Ross' masculinity is also acknowledged when Susan tries to make peace with Ross by asking him to dance with her at the wedding. She says to him, "I'll let you lead," acknowledging that she knows Ross feels threatened by her and is gesturing to him that she does not intend to threaten him. She just loves Carol.
What are you doing?
Okay.
You did a good thing today.
Yeah.
You want to dance?
No, that's fine.
Come on. I'll let you lead.
Okay.
The show still does poke fun at the lesbian wedding. Phoebe, who earlier in the episode claims she has been possessed by the ghost of an old woman, exclaims, "Now I've seen everything," when Susan and Carol get married, making a joke at their expense. Although their wedding does not feature a kiss, as that would have been thought of probably as too much by the showrunners, the display of their wedding as two people truly in love and not threatening to heterosexual marriage was progressive for its time and a great display of queer love on television. Ross kissing Joey. After an audition, Joey returns to the cafe to tell the rest of the main cast about how he had to kiss another man in his audition. He is a professional actor, so he did it without complaint. However, the casting director calls Joey a bad kisser. The plot of this episode includes Joey asking his male friends, Chandler and Ross, to help him by kissing him. This is a great display in the show of the bromantic relationship the male characters have with each other, transcending the traditional male expectations of friendship. A certain affection, closeness, and care exists between Ross, Chandler, and Joey that arguably transcends the boundaries of preconceived and accepted ideas of male friendship. His friends are not interested in helping him and respond in homophobic ways and jokes. Ross does, at the end of the episode, kiss Joey to prove that he is a good friend. Joey is shown to be the most progressive male lead in this plotline. His masculinity and sexuality are unthreatened by the idea of kissing another man. He is displayed as the most secure with his identity. Joey is not a bad kisser, but is probably just not used to kissing men. Joey then turns to his male friends for help, who appear appalled by the idea. Ross declares, "Over my dead body," and Chandler continues, "And I'll be using his dead body as a shield." Though in the end, Ross does kiss Joey to prove he is a good friend. It is Joey who is never fazed by the idea of kissing his male friends, illustrating his greater acceptance and embracement of heterosexual male intimacy compared to the others.
Over my dead body?
And I'll be using his dead body as a shield.
The show's attitude towards this is shown as complex. Though Joey is very progressive, the whole thing is treated as a joke and meant to be laughed at, especially with the end when it turns out that Ross' kiss did not help Joey get the acting part anyway.
I've been feeling incredibly guilty about this because I want to be a good friend, and damn it, I am a good friend, so just shut up and close your eyes.
You are a good friend. Of course, the audition was this morning, and I didn't get it. But that was a hell of a kiss. Rachel is a very lucky girl.
The show takes a comedic approach to this topic, despite Joey's progressive attitude towards it. The heterosexual male intimacy shown through the male leads is progressive overall, not demonizing Joey for his views on kissing another man, despite poking fun at him. Friends' main characters may all represent a strictly heteronormative view in terms of sexuality. The main characters also offer a more fluid expression and view of gender, especially in regards to the masculinity portrayed and accepted by the three male friends, Ross, Chandler, and Joey. Joey's bag. Another episode features a plot line touching on masculinity and fashion and views on how men should present themselves. Rachel is helping Joey buy some new clothes and presents him with a handbag to add to his outfit. Rachel adds a finishing touch to her friend's outfit when she grabs what appears to be a handbag intended for normatively feminine women from the shoulder of a feminine contoured mannequin and proudly presents him with it. Joey leaves no doubt about the extent to which he views this item as gendered and in which direction, with his incredulous response, "Really? A purse?" Joey's initial response to it is very much aligning with traditional masculinity. This is from a time before influential masculine-presenting celebrities made wearing handbags more popular and accepted, like one of my favorite artists, Lil Uzi Vert, who has a passion for fashion, including handbags. Joey calls it a purse and genders the fashion choice immediately. After some negotiation with Rachel, he decides that the bag is unisex and agrees to wear it, facing immediate criticism from his other friends.
Wow, you look just like your son, Mrs. Tribbiani.
Most of the humor in this episode, as it relates to Joey, derives from the episode's use of his man bag to destabilize normative gender binaries via a combination of comedic appeal to the recognizability of the post-feminist figure of the metrosexual and humorous disavowal of its potential challenge to hegemony by falling back on homophobic and transphobic jokes that serve to resituate Joey within the semiotic landscape of hegemonic masculinity. This takes place through a combination of ironic dismissal, like Chandler's sarcastic exclamation of, "Wow, you look just like your son, Mrs. Tribbiani." It is Joey who is depicted as securus in his heterosexuality and with the normativity of his masculinity. Joey is displayed again as the most secure male character with his gender and sexuality. He defends his wearing of the bag until the jokes finally get to him. By the end of the episode, he surrenders the bag due to it causing him to not be cast in a role he's auditioning for.
What? Why, Joey, you were so ready for it.
Yeah, I thought so too, but she said the casting people had some problems with me.
What kind of problem?
Well, to tell you the truth, they had a problem with the bag.
Oh, my God.
You know what? It was a stupid play anyway.
Joey, I think it's time to give up the bag.
I don't want to give up the bag. I don't have to give up the bag, do I, Paige? You think I should give up the bag?
Wait, Joey, I'm sorry. I mean, as terrific as I think you are with it,
Oh, hey.
I just don't know if the world is ready for you and your bag.
The main cast and secondary characters throughout the episode discriminate against him for wearing the bag. They feminize him and treat him differently because they perceive him as less masculine. The jokes leveled at him are homophobic and transphobic, all for making the fashion choice to wear a handbag.
I think you look great. Joey, that bag is going to get you that part.
And a date with a man.
Joey giving up on wearing the bag and agreeing with the outside opinions that it is too feminine to be taken seriously is a step back in the masculine security of his character and not very progressive for the show. The entire plotline is treated as a joke, and its resolution in maintaining queerphobic opinions on how men should present themselves is not progressive. The What If episode. This pair of episodes in Season 6 explores different what-if scenarios for the main characters, including what if Monica was fat, what if Joey was a successful actor, and what if Ross's wife Carol never came out as a lesbian. The Ross plotlines of the episodes then follow Ross and Carol's unhappy marriage. Ross regularly complains to his friends about not having sex with his wife. This emphasizes the heteronormative expectations that a wife role in a marriage is to satisfy the husband with sex, and that Carol is therefore disappointing Ross by not satisfying him.
Still going through that dry spell with Carol?
Yeah.
How long has it been since you've had sex?
Well, last weekend
Oh, that's not so bad.
will be 2 months since I stopped trying.
The patriarchal status quo of these narratives, the endgame is nonetheless still to achieve the romantically driven formation of the white heteronormative couple. The show treats Carol in these episodes as if she only exists to inconvenience Ross. Ross expresses his sexual frustration by offering Carol to have a threesome. They portray Carol as very eager to have a threesome with Ross and another woman. They show her as a sexually uninterested in Ross, but very interested in the threesome and comparably horny. The show fetishizes her and the sex between two women heavily, including Joey telling Ross, "Your worst night with two women, still better than any other night."
But still, Ross, your worst day with 2 women? Pretty much better than any other day. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
The progressive attitude the show tries to present about Carol and Susan's relationship is thrown out in this episode for a perspective of a heavily sexualized lesbian relationship. The women are characterized as liars, that Carol is lying to Ross about her sexuality with the consequence of disappointing Ross sexually. This is not progressive in its portrayal of lesbian relationships. The characters in this episodes do not live up to the stereotypical expectations the show lays out for LGBTQ characters to be expected, and Carol is painted as an obstacle in this episode more so than anything. However, even these seemingly progressive representations are not without faults, as evidenced by appeals to certain heteronormative and hegemonic ideals in order for these characters of the LGBTQ community to be accepted and represented. Ross and Joey cuddling. Friends is known for the bromance relationships, mostly between Chandler and Joey, but also between the 3 male characters, including Ross. Friends is symptomatic of a millennial television culture in which homophobia is renegotiated through these discourses of bromance and homosociality, and through the figure of the so-called bromosexual. This episode in particular features Joey and Ross cuddling. After watching the movie Die Hard together, they fall asleep on Ross's couch and wake up cuddling each other. Their immediate reaction is horror, and they swear to never talk about it. Ross and Joey are caught napping together, and Joey jumps off the couch saying, "Dude, what are you doing?" The immediate dismissal of any homosexual connotations is emblematic of the ironic humor around identity politics and Friends. The rest of the episode shows Ross and Joey alluding to their cuddling as if it was sex, very funny to the audience. Joey tries to convince Ross to cuddle with him again, claiming it was the best nap he ever had. They go about joking about their cuddling with innuendos. Ross eventually gives in to Joey, and they cuddle again, getting caught by the rest of the friends, waking up to them watching.
Great nap.
It really was.
What the hell are you doing?
Excuse me.
Joey immediately throws Ross under the bus and blames him for how weird it is. This is not very progressive for the show, implying that what they are doing is gay, wrong, and weird, explicitly talking about how uncomfortable it makes them and their concerns about what other people would think about it. Rachel's college kiss. One episode, Rachel runs into an old friend of hers from college. Rachel reveals to the group that she and Melissa once kissed. This kiss is framed as Rachel's one wild thing she has done in her life, to the amusement of Joey, and through the rest of the episode he fetishizes this and is eager to hear as much about it as he can. This is an example of fetishization and hypersexualizing lesbian relationships that the show does, especially with Joey being so excited to hear everything he can about that encounter.
She's actually very sweet, and we used to be very close.
Wait a minute. She's not the one who you...
Who you what? Who you what?
Yes. Wow.
Well, what? Well, what? Who you what?
Oh, it's not a big deal.
They were lovers.
What? What?
Oh, you know what? I can't. I have to have dinner with that Melissa girl.
Can I come? I won't even talk. You just hear the noise from my video camera.
What is this? What's going on?
Oh, good. Can I tell it? Can I tell it?
Well, do you want to hear what actually happened or Joey's lewd version?
Joey's.
The media also presents extremely hypersexualized representations of lesbians, representations that often serve to appeal to the heterosexual male. Such hypersexualized portrayals are known as lipstick lesbians. In the episode, this experimentation with Rachel's sexuality is never thought of as that. It is only ever framed as a crazy thing she did in college. It is never looked at as a serious exploration of sexuality. Melissa is revealed to secretly be in love with Rachel at the end of the episode and has been repressing her feelings for years, including Melissa having a current boyfriend and her admitting that she thinks of Rachel when having sex with her boyfriend. These women are portrayed as liars, portraying Melissa as lying to herself and her boyfriend about her true sexuality. Rachel affirms that she does not feel the same and is just a good kisser.
Wait a minute. No, wait a minute. Okay, look. That night was the one wild thing I have ever done in my entire life, and I'm not going to let you take that away from me. Okay, so if you don't remember that, maybe you will remember this.
Oh my God. You love me.
The content of this episode heavily appeals to a male audience and a hypersexualized view of lesbian encounters, which is not at all progressive. The show frames an expectation that if women have sexual experiences with other women, that it should just be looked at as a wild experience, that they should fall back in line and find boyfriends and husbands for themselves, and that those experiences exist for the benefit and sexual gratification of men in their future. Friends still presents women with a particular way to think about their gendered selves, as well as influences the expectations others have for this sex and their performance of gender within a post-feminist culture. Chandler's transgender parent. Chandler's father, who is a trans woman, is chronically misgendered and dead-named throughout their appearances on the show. We know she goes by Helena Handbasket in her drag show, and never hearing another name besides Charles, I will refer to her as Helena. Her character adds the first and only transgender character represented in Friends. This is a big milestone for the late 90s and early 2000s, as transgender visibility on television at this time is practically non-existent. The alternative families of Friends and its close circle of whiteness make just enough space for non-heteronormative characters, who are white of course, including Ross's ex-wife Carol and her partner Susan, the children of Phoebe's brother and sister-in-law from whom she serves as a surrogate, Chandler's divorced parents and his father who performs in a gay burlesque show, and Joey's mother who is happy that her husband has a lover. These characters and storylines that undercut the cultural centrality of the heteronormative nuclear family are the background that reinforces the Friends as a familial group themselves. However, including the chronic dead-naming and misgendering this representation is incredibly problematic. Helena exists throughout the lore of the show as a chronic butt of the joke. I can't think of a single scene Helena is in that doesn't exploit her identity for laughs. The character is also played by a cisgender woman, Kathleen Turner. The show portrays an attitude that a transgender identity is inherently humorous.
Good
drinks, please? Waiter, a tris.
Chandler regularly talks about Helena in his life as a selfish person who broke up his family to move to Vegas and star in a drag show, or to have sex with the pool boy, and only talks about the divorce of his parents as a selfish choice his father made, not acknowledging how the divorce allowed Helena to live as a trans woman.
Parade. If the parade decided it was gay, moved out, and abandoned its entire family.
Now, Chandler, dear, just because your father and I are getting a divorce doesn't mean we don't love you. It just means he would rather sleep with the houseboy than with me.
More turkey, Mr. Chandler.
The series marks its Gen X identity as the divorce generation, with these various representations of the non-traditional, non-nuclear family, which are, to varying degrees, the products and consequences of divorce, and the privileging of friendships over family relations. In this episode, Chandler, who does not want to invite Helena to his and Monica's wedding, finally decides to, due to Monica's encouragement. They travel to Las Vegas to meet with her and to invite her to the wedding. It was somewhat progressive of the show to display Chandler, having not been accepting of her transgender identity up to this point, make peace with it, and actively seek her out to be a part of his life. However, the show's chronic mishandling of Helena as a character greatly undoes the progressiveness and sets the show back drastically in transgender representation. The show displays Helena as sex-hungry and predatory towards young boys, selfish in the context of breaking up Chandler's family and choosing to present as a woman, and as the constant center of ridicule. The show is not at all progressive with Helena. Ross calling Chandler gay. Throughout the show, Chandler is often called gay. When the show was being developed, apparently the showrunners weren't sure if they wanted the character Chandler to be gay or not, eventually deciding for him to be straight. One holdover of that decision is that regularly throughout the show, Chandler is joked to be gay. During this episode in Season 9, Ross discovers his college's alumni website and starts posting. To prank Ross, Chandler logs into his account and posts that Ross, a paleontologist, likes to have sex with dinosaurs. In revenge, Ross posts that Chandler is gay.
All right, wait a second. Why would Ross tell everyone in your class that you are as gay as the day is long?
Because I told everyone he slept with dinosaurs.
Well, that's clearly a joke. This could easily be true.
They argue about which is worse, and later in the episode, after Ross fakes his own death, someone comes to his fake wake as a man interested in Chandler, even asking Monica how she shaves her beard so close, after assuming that she is Chandler's homosexual partner. The show regularly regulates the men's relationships and sexuality by making being gay a joke. There is no space to have their sexuality or masculinity by extension questioned, and being gay or anything not entirely masculine is joked about, and being gay is treated as inherently humorous. This aspect of the show is not progressive, making being gay a joke in all contexts is damaging to viewers who internalize that kind of dialogue throughout the series. This comedic regulation preserves the boys' relationship as heterosexual and prevents their relationship from being labeled as gay. This constant regulation to prevent their relationship from entering the sphere of homosexuality again questions Friends' acceptance of the LGBTQ community. White heteronormativity. I am also criticizing Friends' enforcement of white heteronormativity, even more disappointing of them to do, as the show is almost entirely based on Living Single, a sitcom predating Friends, starring an all-black main cast of friends navigating the same plot, essentially. Friends was based on this show, and they essentially just made it white for a network audience. Despite the show's progressive choice to include Carol and Susan as regular characters, they do disappear later in the show, regardless of the fact that they are the primary caretakers of Ross's son. The number of episodes they appear in is also limited and dwindling as the series went on. The show tends to limit the characters outside of the heterosexual norm and keep them at a distance from the group of main characters. Although Carol and Susan appear on the show semi-regularly, they disappear after season 7. In fact, over an 8-year period, Carol appears on only 16 episodes. The close circle of friends that functions as an alternative family not only insulates itself in its whiteness, but also in its compulsory heteronormativity. The show's distancing and exclusion of people of color or non-heterosexual characters from the tight-knit circle of main friends is framing them as aspiring for the whiteness the main characters possess, and presumably the majority of the audience. The main characters maintain a closed circle of whiteness that is never majorly penetrated. Ross in season 2 dates a woman named Julie who is Asian and the butt of many Asian-targeted jokes, and in season 10 he dates Charlie, a black woman. Neither of these relationships last, emphasizing the closed circle of whiteness refusing to be penetrated by people of color. The characters associated with non-heteronormative identities and sexualities are also kept well out of the tight-knit circle of friends, and, as Chidester argues, not enough can be made of the rhetorical power of the invitation to identification, that this visual consistently and persistently extends to the white audience member. His assertion that the series interpolates the white viewer in its fantasy of aspiration is compelling considering the show's continuing popularity. The two women of color that Ross dates are also characterized as very whitewashed in another attempt to appeal to a white audience. Other people of color in the show are relegated to small roles, often subordinate roles. The show does this by casting them in stereotypical representations and chooses not to break new ground in this way. Black characters who appear on the show in the role of subordinate often perform stereotypes. The show features a complete lack of authentic representation of people of color and for diverse racial identities that do not fit into the show's idealistic depiction of friendship. Friends articulates a discourse of neo-traditionalism that is centered on white heteronormative romantic love and the fetishization of the domestic sphere, encompassing both domestic labor and the inhabitation of domestic space. The show underscores a nostalgic view of relationships and is presented as universally desirable. When they emphasize this perspective, the show preserves and reinforces traditional expectations about race, gender, and sexuality, maintaining its ideals about white heteronormativity and proudly broadcasting that to the audience. In conclusion, Friends is one of the most successful shows of all time, and in that way, its place in television history is indisputable. Its inclusion of LGBTQ plus characters was progressive for its time, even if how they handled them in some circumstances were more setbacks than anything. The show did provide some valuable visibility for the time of LGBTQ plus characters. However, their roles remained secondary and were often faced with ridicule and jokes from the main cast. Friends exists as a negotiated text. It allows for interpretations from multiple audiences who can see affirming and simultaneously regressive elements in the representation from the show. The show did break ground in lots of ways, bringing representation of queer characters to a larger audience, but its reluctance to fully incorporate them into more important roles of the show only maintained the enforcement of white heteronormativity throughout the series. The show created space for representation, but maintained a closed circle of whiteness, straight characters propped up as the norm, and a privileged version of neo-traditionalism that continues to resonate in pop culture today. It is not as simple as stating that overall Friends, as media text, provides an either good or bad representation of gender and sexuality. This text representations can be viewed through various perspectives and subsequently be identified as both good and bad simultaneously. Friends is still a valuable cultural text. It shows both strides and setbacks in queer representation on television and is a testament to how media can reflect and shape societal attitudes. It leaves behind a legacy that invites ongoing analysis, and as the show brings in a younger audience on streaming services, it invites analysis of its cultural narratives once again.